Okay, I wonder what you'll think of this. I got a conference report car mounting. You can get those at conferencereportvideodevices.com or not. And whee! Yeah, so I was thinking about this. I thought about this for years. It's hard to express to people, but I really think programming has helped me think about the world, and it's enhanced my relativity and my natural relativity, just that seems to be the way I am. Definitely is what made me a good programmer. My first methodology of programming, so remember, I picked up programming. I picked it up to a professional level, worked in industry and science and whatnot. I have a degree in philosophy. It turns out that was useful because it's all about logic, right? But anyway, the first philosophy of programming I ever had was based on the idea that the computer started working on an Apple II Plus at school. Ended up buying an Apple IIe for my job. Well, my mother bought half of it for me, and we went in together. And it could do all of these things, but I'm told, hey, it really can only do like, half dozen to dozen things. What? Yeah, it deals with numbers. Turns out it's not even true it deals with numbers. It deals with voltages. Those can be mapped to numbers. Relatively discrete voltages can be mapped to numbers. And it's just that numbers can be mapped to so many other things. A number can be a color, it can be a moment of sound, it can make you have a click on a speaker, in other words. So my first method then was that, well, the way you program is you learn what those things are that a computer can do. And then you pretend to be that. Pretend you're limited to that yourself and try to do what you want the computer to do. And you start to learn just naturally what kind of things can be decomposed into procedural logic, with the main problem being that you have to use ultimately you're using discrete models that all have to map to a numerical, metered space. So there's a lot you can do with that, and there's a lot that's difficult. In complexity theory, you start to learn what kind of jobs are, Turing machines are really bad at. Specifically, NP-hard things that operate in, whose big O notation, whose limiting function is, n factorial or 2 to the n. Okay, am I losing you? The point is, I used relativity, right? I put myself in the shoes of a computer. Okay. Now, why this is so useful? First, why would it not be as useful as it might seem? Well, because, a human being or a animal is not a Turing machine. So we are not, if you think a human is limited to the things a Turing machine is limited, you're going to have problems, I think. However, this computational model of processing does have a lot of similarities. And when you are a human pretending to limit yourself to these logical rules. Well, you are a human. You have more than the logical rules to work with. You're really just expressing yourself. You're like, I want to express my creativity. This is all I've got. And you can still do something human, like create, you know, something new, novel. In other words, you bring your humanity into this limitation. You're picturing being a man inside a box that controls a robot, and I can only control the robot with the rules of the computer, but I still have my creative goals of what I'm trying to make it do. But most importantly, it's the information processing perspective. When you picture what a computer can do, it's in terms of getting information through some sort of numerical mapping so that it ends up to be numerical information. And then you generate action or behavior of some kind, intellectual or otherwise, computational, some sort of behavior. This is the same situation that humans are in, right? We take information and we process it into behavior, at least cognitive behavior, more generally, you know, physiological behavior. Now, no doubt this influenced my belief that we should start from perceptions, which is the core of the information source. But it also went the other way. I already thought this. Before I learned computers, I was sitting around going, I think people only know what they see. They're limited to their own subset, their own perspective in the world. That you look at a building from this side, you say it looks like this. If you were on the other side, you'd say it looked like that. But they fed each other. Now that could be creation of a bias in me, except for it really is true. There really is some insight on how cognition has to work when you think of how an entity that is a material device, you know, could operate. It gets information. What can it do? What's the information mean? What's it like? Right. And this is the key thing with this theory of cognitive science that I like, called the theory of the embodied mind. It draws a lot of its, you know, ideas from the notion that the brain is a part of the body. It evolved with the body. It is an organ. It's a physical thing. It's limited to physical reality. Like, if it has information, it had to collect it somehow or generate it. And thinking of computers, you know, limiting my cognition to what a computer could do is it emphasizes the physicalness of the computer. What does the computer literally touch and have access to? Well, what's it mean when it gets a reading? You know, what's the plus or minus on the accuracy of it? You know, am I going to corrupt the data with my floating point noise, or is that just going to be below the noise level already inherent in the data? Makes you think very physically about how thinking works. And you can apply that back to yourself. Or, for example, there's an old, well, it's not that old, but an interesting thing on how bats sense. You know, it makes the point that we can never imagine a sense we don't have accurately and be sure we were getting it right. However, we can go ahead and be relativistic. I can put myself in it's on how bats sense, right? So I can put myself in the wings of a bat or of a mosquito and fly along. I can imagine being a dove with a magnetic eye that could see magnetic field lines. And, you know, I can't have the exact color space that it's got, but I can use color spaces I have. I can imagine that information mapped into sound and sight and touch and smell. And I won't know what it's like to feel like that creature, first person wise, right? But I will know something about what it's like to have that information available, right? So, you know, let's say bats sense their sonar in some sort of weird hybrid space, and we just project it into visual. We see how accurate it is to the millimeter and say it's most like visual. And we imagine having like an extra visual thing in addition to our regular eyes, you know, overlaid like a, I don't know, like an x-ray picture or something. Obviously that's not going to capture what it's really like to be the bat, but it will allow us to model the bat, to take into account what information we can see that the bat has. You know, we know the bat has this sonar, you know, is that what it's called? The ultrasound, squeaky type sense. We can't know it has a new color called GRU that it uses that we can't imagine, but we can't imagine the information mapping into something physical like a sense space, using one of the many sense spaces that we do possess. And I think as a result, I'm a lot better at putting myself into other people's shoes, or their wings, or their paws. And while I can't get a perfect picture, I can increase the breadth and scope of my own picture. So, yeah, what do you think of that? You're probably not going to like that because not many of you know how programming, so you don't want to hear how programming. I think everybody should do a little programming in this day and age. It's pretty easy. But then again, that's just me. I'm biased. All right. Cheers to you. Hope I didn't make you too dizzy.